Hello everyone, I'm Daniel Niefler from the Gübelin Gem Lab. I would like to give you a presentation about provenance proof, the initiative from the Gübelin Gem Lab to develop technologies for tracing and tracking of gemstones all along the value chain from the mine to the end consumer. Nowadays, consumers has quite a range of expectations when buying any product, and specifically when buying a luxury product. We know that the majority of consumers, they want to know where exactly has a product been sourced, how has it been produced. That's the bad message. The good message is 2/3 of the millennials are willing to pay a premium for a product of which they know has been produced in a sustainable way. So the luxury product in specific, it might get associated with quality, but it might not get forcibly associated with sustainability or with ethical sourcing. And today's consumers, these millennials, they are well educated and they're also critical. So it might not be good enough if you just kind of self-declare that your product, your jewelry item, your gemstone has been sourced in an ethical and in a sustainable way. Today's consumers might want to have some kind of proof, some kind of evidence. Our industry does indeed have a bit of an image problem. This is a statement here from Global Witness from last year, a bit less than a year ago, where they basically say about our industry that we do have a reputation for corruption, conflict, and certain connections to armed groups. This is a horrible statement, and this is something which we have to take very serious if we do not want to lose the confidence of our clients being the engine of the entire industry, of course. The brands have understood that message. They ask more and more for a proper chain of custody that is verifiable, that is auditable. And also the regulators are increasing their pressure. There was a statement a bit less than a year ago from the US State Department where they say that our industry is too slow in implementing change and that they have our industry on the radar. So we are better acting now than too late. So the challenge is that our industry, the supply chain of the color gemstone industry, is indeed to a certain extent intransparent. As you all know, the mining is quite often artisanal. So the largest share of the mining is done in an artisanal way, small scale way. It is also informal, sometimes illicit. The value chain is sometimes extremely long. There are many handovers. It's complex, it's fragmented. So that's obviously adds to the complexity of also implementing a transparent supply chain. Many of the goods, they are leaving their country, the country where they are mined, either unreported or they are undervalued, which is bad for these countries because they kind of miss the chance to get proper taxes, to get a proper return from the values that they are exporting out there to the world. Now the trade, as you all know as well, it's pretty much based on personal relationships and trust, which is in itself not a bad thing, but it's difficult when you reach the point that you're going to have to explain to your end consumer where it's coming from, because that end consumer might maybe know you as a retailer, but the end consumer might not forcibly have the trust in all the steps upwards the supply chain towards the mine. So there's a certain deficit in being able to demonstrate that all the stakeholders along the value chain were indeed acting in a proper way. We also know that in some of the places there are certain environmental issues, there are certain challenges in terms of social standards, and so on. So that's something which is putting or threatening the reputation of the entire industry, although we know that it might not be the standard situation in most of the supply chains. So nowadays, at least to our knowledge, there is no proper traceability system in place. And it's not only about avoiding risk, it's also about missing a chance to kind of do a very good, proper storytelling, because clients nowadays, they want to have good, credible stories told, complete stories about where their luxury product is coming from. They do not only want to buy something that sparkles, they want to become part of a story. They kind of want to get this feeling of belonging when they are buying jewelry. And we do have these stories to tell, and most of the stories are wonderful stories that we should not kind of stop telling those stories. It's just about adopting the right tools that we can tell them in a proper way. So this situation is basically the background why we then came up with our initiative Provenance Proof. Provenance Proof aims to develop technologies that help making the supply chain of gemstones more transparent. In the mission statement of Provenance Proof, we have defined that all technologies that we are developing and marketing have to be made available to the entire industry. So there are no exclusivities whatsoever. The Provenance Proof services are not linked to any Gübelin GemLab services. So it's not as such that only the companies that are using Gübelin GemLab reports can use those services. No, not at all. The Provenance Proof services are available to everyone, even if you're using other lab services. No problem at all. And Provenance Proof has been spun off into a separate company. This statement here is meanwhile outdated. We have spun it off into a separate company, which still belongs to the Gübelin family, but it's now completely separate, financially, legally independent from the Gübelin GemLab. So I would like to present you the two technologies that we have developed so far under this Provenance Proof initiative. The first one is a physical tracer, referred to as the Emerald Paternity Test. The question that we want to answer with the Emerald Paternity Test is the following. How can we identify the exact place where a stone has been mined? The Gübelin GemLab is a colored gemstone lab, and we do have a certain skill in determining the country of origin where the stone is coming from, colored gemstones. Now we have limitations, we can only determine the country of origin. We cannot determine whether it has been mined by a company A or a company B, which might work on the same geological unit. But it might be important for the end consumer to know whether it's from company A, which might consider certain environmental standards or social standards, or whether it's coming from company B, who might not consider certain standards. And this is exactly why we said we want to come up with something where we can also answer this relevant question. So the approach was that we wanted to put something into the stone, into the rough crystal in the mining site. So before it is leaving the mining area, before it's leaving the sorting house, we want to put something into the stone that serves as a birth certificate of the gemstone. That's why we call it Emerald Paternity Test. That mini barcode, so to say, has to be invisibly small, so that it cannot be seen by eye, that it cannot be seen by loupe. It must not be removable, so that it stays in the stone even after processing it, the typical kind of treatments and processes that a stone is undergoing, so that it's still in the stone when it is in the jewelry, in the final jewelry product, and it must not affect the appearance of the stone. Otherwise, it would be considered a treatment, which it should not be. So what we take is, synthetic DNA, or a fragment of synthetic DNA. This is kind of our barcode or our memory stick. DNA can contain a lot of information in a very small space. So what we write into this DNA is the exact mining name. We write into that DNA the name of the mining company and information such as the mining period, so which year or which quarter the stone has been mined. Now, DNA is a very fragile organic structure, and we have to protect it. So that's why we put it into a sphere of silica to protect it. And this sphere, what you can see here on the screen, this big glassy sphere, still has a diameter, an overall diameter of 100 nanometers only, which corresponds to 0.0001 millimeters. With such a size of these spheres, it cannot be detected in a stone by even the best optical microscope. It can only be made visible with scanning electron microscope. So it's something which is perfectly capable to fulfill the conditions that we have on such a, say, mini barcode. The emerald paternity test, as I've already mentioned, is applied on the rough crystal directly in the mine. These particles are immersed in some kind of liquid, and then the stones are put into those liquids, and these small particles penetrate the tiny little fissures that we have in all the emeralds, and they adhere to the wall of those fissures, and then they remain into those fissures throughout the next steps. It's a batch process, so all stones are gonna get the same nanotag. Then if you want to have a new nanotag, say for the next production cycle, then it produces, or it requires that another type of DNA is produced, which of course is perfectly possible. The image that you can see here is, this is Clemens Link, our head of development, and he is applying the emerald paternity test on a batch of emeralds in the Kagem mine in Zambia. Then the second technology I quickly would like to present to you is a digital tracking system. So the provenance proof blockchain, blockchain referring to a distributed ledger technology that we are applying. The reason why we come up with this second technology is that the first technology, the emerald paternity test, only tells us about only gives us the birth certificate. So it only tells us where the stone has been taken out from the earth, but it doesn't tell us where the stone has gone through. So in order to track all the steps that a stone has taken, from the mine to the cutter, to a treater, to a dealer, to an exporter, and so on, until it ultimately arrives with the jewelry manufacturer or the retailer and the end consumer, for this we need another system, and that's why we have this digital tracking system. I have to add one remark regarding the emerald paternity test. As the name says, it's basically available now for emeralds and for a handful of other types of gemstones. It is not for all type of gemstones. The blockchain that now I'm just going to present is different. The blockchain is applicable for any type of gemstone. Emeralds, rubies, sapphire, all type of other colored gemstones. It can be applied for pearls, it can be applied for diamonds, it can be applied for anything. So that's obviously another advantage of this blockchain. So let me give you an introduction of what it is. The question that we wanted to answer is how to track a stone on its way to the end consumer. And the approach that we take is that each stone gets a personal diary. So when unearthing the stone, we open a diary and we start to describing that stone, and then the diary is basically keeping record of all the actions, all the steps that the stone experiences in its life as a gemstone. So obviously the first step is after doing the registration, then the miner obviously is writing the first chapter, there may be a trader, eventually the rough stone will be cut, the stone might go to a gem lab, it might eventually go to a jeweler and to a retailer. Obviously you might have some of these steps multiple times, such as the trader or as a gem lab, but that's not a problem. You know, the blockchain can perfectly deal with an unlimited number of transactions. Basically, we have built the blockchain that it caters the need of individual stones, but it can also perfectly deal with parcels of stones. So you can create parcels, you can transfer parcels where you have multiple stones. You can split parcels, that's what is shown here in the middle. You know, you might have one bag or one parcel of stones, which then you split up into smaller sub-parcels, or you might take individual stones out. The blockchain can deal with that as well. So you can take a parcel, you remove one stone digitally from the parcel, and you create its own entry for an individual stone or for the sub-parcels. And in the case, if you are a cutter, you might have one rough stone and you're cutting multiple siblings out of it, multiple cut stones. And that's not a problem at all as well. You can basically split the blockchain of the rough stone and create multiple chains for the cut stones. Now, the perfect combination, of course, is when you have the digital tracking of the blockchain combined with the physical anchor, for example, with emeralds, that you have the emerald paternity test combined with the digital logbook. Then you, in this package, the physical tracer with the digital tracking system gives the highest level of robustness and the certainty about the stone. Now, how to use that platform, how to use that diary for your gemstone. It is not a physical diary in paper and pencil. It is a digital platform. As I mentioned, it's deploying distributed ledger technology. We have a great technical partner with Everledger, a wonderful company to build blockchain specifically for the tracking of physical goods. If you go to www.provenanceproof.io, you can sign up, and once the sign up process, the registration is completed, you can also log in under this page and start using all functionalities. I now just go quickly through the main features. You're going to get much more detailed information about the functionalities, how to do the individual tasks by my colleague Clemens Link, who is also uploading a number of small videos explaining the different features of the blockchain. So the registration is the first step that you're going to have to do in case you're not registered yet. We need your name, we need your email address, phone number, company name, and the place where you're operating, the country. We also need your birthday because we want to do a little background check on you, a little KYC check. And then once all this is done, you can then start to using it. We also need the role in the blockchain. So whether you are a miner or a cutter or a treater, whether you are a dealer or a gem lab or a wholesaler, a jewelry producer or a retailer, because depending on the role you choose, you're going to get different features, different functionalities that you can use. You also will have to accept to certain terms and conditions. And once you have ticked those boxes, then you can send it to us. We're going to perform the background check and we're going to provide you with the login credentials so that you can then start using the platform. There's a user guide, a digital user guide that we're going to send to you. And if you have questions otherwise on how to use it, feel free to contact us at Provenance Proof or at Gübelin Gem Lab. We will then forward you to the person that can help you. So once the registration is completed, you log in using your email address and the password that has been given to you. And then you can start with sharing info or giving information about yourself, your company, which is also a marketing opportunity for you. So give us whatever information you want to share with the other people then using that blockchain. Once stakeholder information is completed, and this of course you only have to do once, then you can add information about the item, so the actual stone or the parcel of stone or the jewelry item that you are adding now to this digital inventory. One mandatory step is to upload the image. So that's simple. We have intentionally built the blockchain that it only needs a smartphone. There's no fancy other equipment that you need. So with the smartphone, you take a picture or you upload a picture from your computer that you might already have stored in your inventory. You enter basic stuff such as the carat weight, the type of stone that you think it is. And then there's a lot of non-compulsory information such as the color or treatments or the shape, or whatever other information that you might want to add. If you have parcel information, it's a little bit different. You have then maybe the total weight that you have to enter, and you have to enter the number of stones that are contained in that parcel. Then you can also add traceability information. So if you do have some kind of a physical tracer, such as the Emerald Paternity test or any other traceability information, there are certain bag and tag systems that are used in mining areas. For diamonds, there might be, you might have a Kimberley process number that you might want to add. You might have blockchain information from other blockchains that you're using. So that's all this kind of information you can also put into that part, into that module, to any stone or to any parcel of stones that you're adding to your digital inventory. So eventually you're going to have a stone inventory. You can then deal with those stones. You can transfer stones to a new owners. So in fact, stones that you are selling, you can add new stones to your inventory, stones that you are buying. You can take stones. Now we're at the jewelry level. You can take different stones from your inventory and create a new jewelry. So you can basically merge the blockchains, the individual blockchains of the stones, into a new blockchain of the jewelry item. What is shown here, you might have 3 stones and you merge them into one blockchain, creating this collier here, this emerald necklace. Ultimately, and that's what I believe is the biggest value that is added with this tool, with this platform, is that the retailer or the brand can basically take all the information that has been gathered, all along the value chain from the stone, and can then create a story for the end consumer in line with the values, with the corporate message that the brand or the retailer wants to tell. So it's really a rich source of storytelling, specifically for that stone that the retailer is about to sell to the end consumer. So the blockchain, the provenance proof blockchain, is basically your chance to contribute your story, what you have done to the stone. What was the value added process that you have added to the stone? What else do you want to tell the end consumer? What is maybe an activity in your community that you're doing? Where are you specifically good in doing something? All that, what you want to tell, this platform caters or provides the space that you can tell your story and that it reaches the end consumer ultimately. Some general remarks about blockchains. Today, everybody still talks about blockchains. In a couple of years, nobody will talk about blockchains because they're simply going to be embedded in existing systems. But everybody will know that in the background, there's some tracking, some tamper-proof tracking of all the transactions done. There's also some kind of the cryptocurrency related blockchains have a bad reputation about their heavy consumption of energy. Please note that this is a different technology that they are using. The kind of energy that is used for the data mining of this cryptocurrency is not comparable to the energy consumption that we have in our use of blockchain technology. And there's an alert that I have to make to you. The blockchain technology does ensure the integrity of the data, but it does not test the veracity. So if somebody is adding wrong information into the blockchain, we will not, or the blockchain technology will not stop him from doing that. So somebody could say that this black stone is a pigeon blood ruby. Obviously, it will eventually become clear that it is not a pigeon blood stone, but the technology as such does not stop him from writing any faulty information into the blockchain. The main features, again, in a nutshell, the blockchain ideally covers the entire value chain from the mine to the end consumer, but it can be started at any stage. We right now have one big wholesaler who is entering his entire inventory into the blockchain, and he's in fact starting the blockchain. So that's obviously not at the beginning of the value chain, it's in the middle of the value chain. But still, better start there than not start at all. Each stakeholder adds information to the diary and then hands it over to the next owner. We can do splitting and merging for parcels and for single stones. The story viewer is what I believe is a wonderful tool specifically for brands and retailers. And it's low tech, you know, you don't need fancy equipment, you need a smartphone. So the blockchain is also perfectly suitable for the artisanal mining sector and the small scale mining sector, not only for the big fish. The visibility is upstream only and only for the current owner of the stone. So we should not confuse the blockchain with a marketplace. The blockchain, and again, that's why I think the comparison with the diary is quite good. Only the person that has the diary in his hand can see the history of the gemstone. And the other people cannot see that history. So it's a permission-based visibility, and it's only upstream. So the miner cannot see to whom the stone was sold then after the cutting and so on. But the retailer and consumer can see all the step upwards towards the mine. Then again, Gübelin nor provenance proof itself has access to data entered into the blockchain. We are the custodians of the registration data, but once you have access to the platform, once you entered stones into your digital inventory, we do not see what kind of stones you're entering there. And last, very important point, the blockchain is open for everyone in the industry, provided you agree with you pass the KYC check and you accept the terms and conditions. It is capable to deal with all type of gemstones, with diamonds and pearls, and it is free of charge. The Gübelin family has accepted to absorb all the costs with operating the blockchain. We think about certain ways how we can make money with that kind of technology, but for the users of the blockchain, it is and it's going to remain free of charge. So this is your page where you can start provenanceproof.io for registration and then for login. So provenance proof technologies are about transparency, and transparency obviously is good to then facilitate the next steps of doing business in a sustainable way. But it's not only about sustainability, it's also about profits, it's about economies. So if you are embracing transparency now, you're going to be ready for changing expectations of markets and also the demands that your clients might have. And as I said before, you know, it's a wonderful way of doing storytelling to the end consumer. That's what the clients want right now, and that's what you should make your contribution to give to fulfill that expectation from the end consumer. So you probably already feel it if you're a dealer. The brands are more and more asking for a certain level of transparency. Not only the brands, also certain regulators, banks and insurances are more and more asking for details about where you have your stuff from, do you know your counterparty, and if you are using the services of this blockchain, then it's just so easy to fulfill all those expectations of regulators, of banks and insurances. Okay, that's pretty much from my side. Thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have questions, let us know. And if you want to know more details about the functionalities of the blockchain, check this site again, because there's more of these presentations coming up. Thank you very much.